Have you ever felt that the more you try to control things, the more they seem to slip away? That your efforts, no matter how well-intentioned, end up creating more resistance than results? There's another way, a different approach that transforms our relationship with life and teaches us to flow with it instead of fighting against it. This is the core teaching of Taoism and the secret revealed by Lao Tzu, the sage behind the masterpiece Tao Te Ching. In this video, you'll discover how concepts like Wu Wei, effortless action, and the wisdom of softness and trust can transform the way you live, act, and make decisions. This is not just a philosophy, it's an invitation to a new way of being in the world, where less effort brings more results, more peace of mind, and a deeper connection to what truly matters. Prepare yourself for a journey that could forever change your perspective. Humans often fall into the trap of believing that constant effort and total control over circumstances are the keys to success. We act as if our ability to manipulate and shape reality can guarantee better and faster results. But paradoxically, the more we try to force things, the further we drift from what we desire to achieve. This behavior is clearly observed in everyday situations. Imagine trying to impress someone you admire. The harder you try, the more likely you are to come across as artificial and less authentic. Or think of the moment when you rehearsed a speech hundreds of times, only for anxiety and the desire for perfection to take over, resulting in an underwhelming performance. It's not a lack of skill or knowledge that holds us back, but the excess control we exert over the situation. This human contradiction, where excessive effort leads to setbacks, is central to Taoist philosophy. Lao Tzu, a sage whose existence remains shrouded in mystery, observed that it is often our minds that sabotage us. Our attempt to intellectualize and control the moment creates barriers that distance us from life's natural flow. Taoism recognizes that forcing situations is like swimming against a river's current. The more we insist on going against the flow, the more exhausted and frustrated we become. The essence of the Tao, or the Way, teaches us that there is a different way to live, a softer and more natural way to achieve our goals. But to do so, we must learn to let go of control and allow things to take their course. This idea of letting go of effort is not synonymous with passivity or giving up. On the contrary, it challenges us to find a balance between action and acceptance. By stopping our fight against the current, we are able to move with it, using its force to our advantage. This is the starting point for understanding the art of living in harmony with the Tao. In the next sections, we will explore how Taoism, through the teachings of Lao Tzu and concepts like Wu Wei, offers a path to overcome this human contradiction. We will learn to replace excessive effort with action that flows naturally, showing that often less is more when it comes to living a full life in tune with the universal flow. At the heart of Taoist philosophy lies the concept of the Tao, often translated as the Way. The Tao is not something that can be fully described or understood by the human mind. It is a universal principle, an invisible force that permeates everything and governs the balance and harmony of the universe. Lao Tzu, considered Taoism's greatest sage, captured the essence of this philosophy in his masterpiece, the Tao Te Ching. Lao Tzu is believed to have lived around the 5th or 6th century BCE, a contemporary of other great thinkers like Confucius. However, his historical existence remains cloaked in mystery, much like his work. The Tao Te Ching is more than a book. It is a collection of poetic and profound teachings that continue to inspire generations. Translated countless times and into numerous languages, it remains one of the most influential texts in world literature. In the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu describes the Tao as a force that governs everything effortlessly, always present yet impossible to be captured by words or concepts. He begins his text with the famous phrase, "The Tao that can be described is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name." This introduction warns us of the limits of language and the human mind in comprehending something so vast and mysterious. The Tao, according to Lao Tzu, does not require effort to function. It is always in action, but never struggles. It guides the universe silently, without forced intervention. To live in harmony with the Tao, we don't need to master or control it, but rather align ourselves with it, ceasing to resist life's natural flow. The Tao Te Ching also addresses leadership and governance, showing that the Tao is not just a philosophy for individual life, but also a guide for the collective. Lao Tzu describes how a wise leader should act, promoting harmony by allowing people to follow their own paths rather than controlling and imposing. He writes, "The world is a sacred vessel. It cannot be controlled. To try to control it is to destroy it." This vision contrasts with authoritarian approaches, emphasizing trust and moderation as essential qualities for leadership. The teachings of the Tao extend beyond politics and apply to everyday life. Lao Tzu invites us to reflect on how we try to impose our will on situations, often creating more problems. He suggests that instead of forcing, we should be flexible like water, which adapts to any shape, yet can erode the hardest stone over time. With the Tao, we learn that less is more. Softness overcomes hardness, and acceptance triumphs over resistance. These principles, though simple, are profoundly transformative and challenging for a mind accustomed to control. They lay the foundation for the concept of Wu Wei, effortless action, which we will explore in the next part. Wu Wei, or effortless action, lies at the core of Taoist philosophy. At first glance, the term might suggest passivity or inaction, but its essence is far deeper and more paradoxical. Wu Wei does not mean doing nothing. It means acting in harmony with the natural flow of things, spontaneously and without forcing situations. Lao Tzu, in his work Tao Te Ching, describes Wu Wei as a state of alignment with the Tao, where actions flow effortlessly and efficiently, free from the interference of ego or the compulsion to control. He teaches that when we try to force an outcome, we often achieve the opposite of what we desire. Instead, by trusting the process and acting naturally, things tend to resolve themselves. A classic example of Wu Wei is the course of a river. It doesn't fight against obstacles. It flows around rocks, curves along bends, and eventually reaches its destination. This seemingly effortless movement is what makes the river so powerful and effective. Similarly, Wu Wei invites us to abandon rigidity and resistance, allowing our actions to flow in harmony with the moment. This principle applies to various aspects of life, including leadership, creativity, and problem-solving. In leadership, Lao Tzu writes, "A great leader is one who makes people say, 'We did it ourselves.'" Rather than exerting excessive control, a wise leader allows things to happen naturally, stepping in only when necessary. This approach not only preserves harmony, but also builds trust and autonomy among others. In creativity, Wu Wei manifests as the state of flow, those moments when we are so immersed in an activity that everything seems to happen effortlessly. Writers, musicians, athletes, and artists often describe this state as a point where action and consciousness become one, and time appears to fade away. It is in this space that true mastery arises. However, achieving Wu Wei is not simple, especially in a world that values relentless effort and constant pursuit of results. To practice Wu Wei, we must let go of expectations, trust the present moment, and release the desire to control everything. This requires courage, because going against the instinct to do more can feel counterintuitive. But paradoxically, the less we try, the more we achieve. Lao Tzu emphasizes that Wu Wei is deeply rooted in softness and receptivity. He writes, "The one who is flexible and fluid, like water, prevails over the one who is rigid and hard." This metaphor reminds us that acting with lightness and openness is not weakness, but a strength that can overcome even the greatest challenges. In practice, Wu Wei invites us to observe the present moment with clarity, act in accordance with what the situation calls for, and trust the outcome without forcing or resisting. It's an invitation to align with the Tao and let it guide our actions. In the next part, we'll explore how this philosophy of softness and flexibility can be applied to everyday life, transforming challenges into opportunities and bringing balance to our actions. One of the greatest lessons of Taoism is the transformative power of softness and flexibility. Lao Tzu often uses water as a metaphor to illustrate how fluidity can overcome even the hardest obstacles. He writes, "Nothing in the world is softer and more flexible than water. Yet for dissolving the hard and rigid, nothing can surpass it." This philosophy challenges us to abandon the belief that brute force and rigidity are signs of power. On the contrary, Taoism teaches that true strength lies in adaptability, in flowing with the moment and acting with lightness rather than resistance. During a storm, for instance, rigid and inflexible trees are often uprooted by the wind, while those that bend with the movement of the air remain intact. In daily life, rigidity manifests in many forms: an insistence on controlling outcomes, attachment to fixed ideas, or resistance to inevitable changes. These postures not only create tension, but often lead to failure because they put us in opposition to the natural flow of things. Lao Tzu reminds us that softness and flexibility are not weaknesses, but qualities that allow us to adjust to the world as it is rather than fighting against it. The practice of softness begins with acceptance. When we accept reality as it is, instead of resisting it, we discover solutions that were previously blocked by our mental rigidity. This doesn't mean resignation, but a willingness to work with circumstances rather than against them. For example, in a disagreement, trying to impose our view with force usually results in conflict and resistance. However, by listening openly and responding with kindness, we create space for understanding and resolution. Another aspect of flexibility is the ability to let go of pride and adopt a position of humility. Lao Tzu writes, "Rivers and seas are the kings of 100 valleys because they remain below them." This quote teaches us that by placing ourselves in a position of receptivity and humility, we attract strength and respect. Instead of insisting on being the strongest or highest, we learn that it is in softness and the ability to yield that we find true stability. Flexibility also enables us to deal better with changes and adversities. Life is unpredictable, and those who cling rigidly to what was or what should be often suffer more when facing the unexpected. On the other hand, those who embrace change with a fluid attitude can adapt quickly, turning challenges into opportunities for growth. This philosophy is not limited to major decisions or moments of crisis. It can also be applied to everyday interactions. Practicing softness in our words, actions, and thoughts can bring more harmony to our relationships and the way we connect with the world around us. The wisdom of softness and flexibility is, therefore, a cornerstone of living in harmony with the Tao and the universe, and consequently, achieving inner peace. By abandoning rigidity and adopting a lighter and more adaptable approach, we find that the greatest obstacles become opportunities to flow with greater grace and purpose. In the next part, we'll explore how this idea connects to the state of flow, where action and awareness merge in perfect harmony, reflecting the practice of Wu Wei at its peak. The concept of Wu Wei, or effortless action, is deeply tied to the state of flow, often described as a state of complete immersion and spontaneity where action and awareness become one. When we are in flow, our actions occur naturally, free from the interference of worries or excessive analysis. It is as if we merge with the moment, acting fluidly and harmoniously with our surroundings. This state of flow is not just a philosophical idea. It is a universal experience that many of us have encountered. Think about a moment when you were so engrossed in an activity, whether dancing, writing, playing a game, or creating something, that you lost track of time and yourself. The actions seemed to happen effortlessly, and everything flowed perfectly. This is the essence of the flow state, and, by extension, Wu Wei. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, one of the foremost scholars on the flow state, described it as a moment when self-consciousness disappears and the individual is completely present in the act. In flow, there is no room for doubt, fear, or overthinking. There is only spontaneous and focused action. It is in this state that we come closest to the Taoist concept of acting in harmony with the Tao. But what prevents us from entering the state of flow more often? According to Taoism and modern psychology, it is the excessive control of the mind. When we try to force a situation, overanalyze, or worry too much about the outcome, we create barriers that distance us from the present. This behavior generates what Csikszentmihalyi calls psychic entropy, a state of internal disorder where our attention is scattered across worries, distractions, and anxieties. The flow state, on the other hand, requires a specific type of surrender. We must let go of excessive control and trust the present moment. This surrender is an act of courage because it involves relinquishing our ego and the need to ensure that everything will go as planned. It is accepting that the present moment is enough and that the process will unfold naturally. The connection between the flow state and Wu Wei is also evident in the spontaneity and efficiency that emerge when we are in this state. In flow, we do not try to make things happen. They simply do. A dancer does not think about each individual movement. They become the dance. A musician does not analyze each note. They become the music. This fusion of action and awareness is the essence of acting in harmony with the Tao. Lao Tzu writes, "Mastering the world is achieved by letting things take their natural course." This phrase reflects the idea that by releasing our obsession with control, we allow the present moment to guide our actions more effectively and harmoniously than we could imagine. The natural flow of things, when accepted and followed, often leads us to the best outcomes. To enter the flow state more often, it is essential to practice presence and mindfulness. This means letting go of the burdens of past and future concerns and diving fully into the now. It also requires engaging in activities that resonate with our abilities and interests, as flow occurs most easily when we are immersed in something we love and that challenges us just enough to hold our focus. The flow state is, therefore, a practical manifestation of Wu Wei. It is a space where softness, surrender, and action merge, creating an experience of deep harmony with the present moment. In the next part, we will explore the obstacles that prevent us from living in this state of flow more consistently, addressing psychic entropy and how to overcome it to act with greater lightness and purpose. If the flow state represents natural and effortless action, psychic entropy is the main obstacle that prevents us from achieving this harmony. This disorder, often referred to as mental chaos, is a state where our minds are overloaded with worries, fragmented thoughts, and distractions. Instead of operating in the present, our attention is divided among the past, the future, and fears created by our own minds. This mental chaos often manifests as anxiety, excessive control, and the need to intellectualize every step before acting. Instead of simply doing, we get lost in thoughts like, "What if I fail? Am I prepared enough?" Or, "What will others think of me?" These thought patterns create a barrier between us and the present moment, distancing us from the flow state and the natural spontaneity that Wu Wei represents. Lao Tzu, in his teachings, warns about the dangers of overloading the mind. He suggests that to live in harmony with the Tao, we must free ourselves from the traps of excessive control and reconnect with simplicity and clarity. He writes, "He who knows when to stop avoids danger." This phrase reminds us that excessive effort and the compulsion to control every detail only lead to exhaustion and a detachment from the natural path. Psychic entropy not only disrupts our performance, but also robs us of inner peace. When trapped in this state, we feel disconnected from ourselves and the present moment. It is like trying to navigate a murky river, where visibility is limited, and every movement feels more difficult than necessary. To overcome this internal turbulence, we must learn to clear the mind, release control, and allow the natural flow of life to guide us. One effective way to combat psychic entropy is to practice mindfulness and presence. This means redirecting our attention to the now, letting go of judgments and worries. For instance, when performing a task, focus entirely on it without thinking about the results or other distractions. This singular focus helps restore mental clarity and opens space for spontaneity. Another powerful tool is the practice of detachment. Lao Tzu teaches that by letting go of outcomes and expectations, we free ourselves from the weight of anxiety. He writes, "He who flows like the Tao remains in harmony with the Tao." This means that by accepting the present moment as it is, instead of trying to shape or control it, we align ourselves with life's natural flow. Overcoming psychic entropy also requires trusting our abilities and the process itself. Often, doubt about our capabilities holds us back from acting fluidly. However, by recognizing that we are already enough and that the present moment always offers what we need, we begin to act with greater confidence and naturalness. Psychic entropy is a common challenge, but overcoming it is possible with practice and patience. When we learn to clear the mind, let go of worries, and trust the moment, we create the necessary space to enter the flow state and act in harmony with the Tao. In the next part, we will explore the essential element for living this practice consistently: trust and surrender to the process, the foundation of a light and connected life aligned with the universal flow. Trust and surrender, the final step on the path. At the heart of Taoist philosophy lies a simple yet profoundly challenging principle: trust and surrender to the natural flow of life. Lao Tzu teaches us that living in harmony with the Tao is not about control, but about acceptance and trust. He writes, "Mastering the world is achieved by allowing it to follow its natural course." This teaching invites us to abandon the need to force or manipulate and instead accept the present moment as it is. Trusting the process requires a special kind of courage, as it often asks us to loosen our grip and let go of the fear of the unknown. In a world that values control and predictability, trusting the flow can feel counterintuitive. Yet, it is precisely in this surrender that we find true freedom. When we stop resisting what we cannot change, we open ourselves to possibilities that were previously unseen. However, surrender is not passivity. It is an active choice to let go of the ego and its incessant demands to shape the world according to our preferences. It is acknowledging that not everything is under our control, and that this is perfectly okay. Lao Tzu poetically describes this. He who trusts the Tao does not fear the unknown, for he knows the path will reveal itself step by step. This practice of trust also connects us to something greater than ourselves. By surrendering to the flow of the Tao, we recognize that we are part of an interconnected whole, and that life has its own wisdom. We do not need to know everything, predict every outcome, or control every detail. Just as a leaf floats down a river without resistance, we are invited to move with life's natural course. Trust also liberates us from the weight of anxiety and doubt. We often overthink the future, or become paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes. But by trusting, we learn that we don't need to have all the answers right now. The present is enough. The next right step will reveal itself at the right time, as long as we remain open and receptive. Lao Tzu illustrates this principle with the metaphor of the sacred vessel. He writes, "The world is a sacred vessel that cannot be controlled. Attempts to control it break it. Let it be, and it will flourish on its own." Surrender, then, is not about giving up, but about allowing life to unfold naturally, without the constant interference of the ego. Surrender is also the key to practicing Wu Wei, effortless action. When we trust the process, our actions flow naturally and with precision. We no longer need to try so hard, because we are aligned with the flow of the Tao. This harmony transforms even the greatest challenges into opportunities for growth and learning. Ultimately, trusting and surrendering to the flow of life is an act of faith, both in ourselves and in the universe. It is believing that even when things seem uncertain or difficult, the path is being perfectly laid out. This trust allows us to live with more lightness, serenity, and gratitude. As we reach the end of this journey of understanding the Tao, we are invited to take a leap of faith. Trust the present moment, surrender to the flow, and discover that by letting go of control, you find something far greater. A life in harmony with the Tao, filled with peace and fulfillment. We have reached the conclusion of this journey, but the learning Taoism offers is infinite. Lao Tzu has shown us that by letting go of control, trusting in the natural flow of life, and acting with softness and wisdom, we can find a balance that leads to a fuller, lighter, and more harmonious existence. Each teaching is an invitation to look inward and let the present moment guide our actions effortlessly and in perfect alignment with the Tao. Now, we want to hear from you. How can you apply these principles in your daily life? What resonated most with you? Share your thoughts in the comments and help spread this message to others. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel for more reflections that transform how we live. Remember, the path of the Tao begins with a single step.